Hey guys, today we're going to talk about slope and finding slope on a graph. I'm going to do a quick review of what makes a slope positive or a slope negative. On a graph, we read our line from left to right. So, on this graph, I would put my pen or my finger or whatever it is at the farthest point to the left and trace along the line. If my line goes up, you can see my cursor is now up at the top of the screen. If my line goes up, that means my slope is positive. Alternately, if I have a line and I trace it from left to right and my cursor goes down, my slope is negative. Let's talk about where those slopes come from. In your regular math class, I know that you've heard that slope is a measure of rise divided by run. Rise is just saying how much is our y value changing. Run is saying how much is our x value changing. So we're going to take the change in y divided by the change in x to find our slope. On a graph, to find a slope, the first thing you need to do are find two good points. I define a good point as a point like this where there is a vertical line that goes straight through the middle of it and a horizontal line, or an x value and a y value. So this one would be a good point. This is also a good point because you can see one of these light gray lines is cutting through it. If I put a point right here, this is not a good point because there isn't a light gray line that's cutting through it from top to bottom. So that's a bad one. This would be a good point. Let's find one more just to make sure you're comfortable. I'm going to trace back. No, 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 yes. So when you're looking for good points to use to find slope, find one where there's an x value and a y value. You don't need to draw those lines through them. I just wanted to make sure it was really clear what I was talking about when I said look for a good point. Okay, so I gave you two good points on this graph, and now my job is to find the rise and the run. Because we read graphs from left to right, start at the point on the left. This is my point on the left, and I'm going to see how many steps up or down do I go to get from this point to this point. Well, I'm going to count down. 1, 2, 3, 4. I went down 4. Because I went down, my rise is a negative 4. If I went up, it would be positive. But to get from here to here, I have to go down, so it's negative. So my rise is negative 4. Now my run is how many steps to the right do I move? I moved 1 step. My change in x, because my x values are listed from side to side, my change in x is 1. So that means my slope is negative 4 over 1. Negative 4 divided by 1 is negative 4. So the slope of this graph is negative 4. That's it. Let's do another one. There we go. On this one, I didn't give you good points, so I need to first find my good points. Here's one. No, 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 yes. No, 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 yes. No, no, no. Okay, there are only 3 good points on this. Quick, take a look at the scale for me. Over here on the y-axis, I'm not counting by ones. This is one of the biggest ways they're going to try to trick you on your test at the end of the year and on your benchmarks, is they're going to mix up the scale and not count by one. So always make sure you pay attention to that. But let's get back to slope. Our slope is our rise, or our change in y, divided by our change in x, our rise over run. So let's see how many steps up do I go to get from this point to this point. I go up 1 step, but take a very close look at the numbers. I went from 40 to 48, so that didn't just increase by 1, that increased by 8. My y value is 8. Now I'm going to see how many steps over. What's my change in y in x? 1, 2, 3, 4. X changed by 4 steps. Let's see if we're counting by ones. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 8 over 4. That can be simplified because 8 divided by 4 equals 2. So the slope of this line is 2. It's a positive 2 because my line is going up when I trace along it from left to right. Let's do one more. On this graph, right away, I can see that my slope is going to be positive because my line is going up. Let's find good points. Here's one. No, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. Okay, then I'm going to pick any 2 points. I always just pick the ones I'm starting with. And I'm going to use my rise over run to figure out what the slope of this line is. I can see that my scale here, I'm not counting by ones, I'm counting by something else. So I see it's 0, something, 4, something, 8. I'm counting by 2s here. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and I'm just going to fill those in so that I don't forget and make a silly mistake, because even me, old mean Miss Sedler, sometimes makes math mistakes. Let's take a look. I'm counting from this point to this point how many steps up. I go 1 step up, but that's increasing from $4 to $6, so that's a rise of 2. Now I need to do my run to get from this point to this point. What is my change in x? Well, it's 2 steps, but if I look down here, my scale isn't counting by ones. I just went from 0 over to 6, so that was a change of 6. My slope right now is 2/6. I can simplify this by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So this graph has a slope of positive 1/3. Your turn to practice.